Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, The Future of Telephony is Now. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to join us this morning. I know the time is precious. In the ordinary course of events, we would be in a hotel somewhere, having had some breakfast, and we'd actually be presenting to an audience, but obviously that's not possible at the moment. So we've reverted to quite aptly presenting to you today on Teams live events. My name is James Finglas, and on behalf of Microsoft and ourselves here on the MJ Flood Technology team, I'd like to welcome you. We're going to stick very rigidly to 45 minutes, so as we don't take up too much of your time. So after the welcome from myself, I'll then hand over to Eoin Mulligan, who is the Teams specialist within Microsoft Ireland, and he'll be positioning Teams voice from a Microsoft perspective. We're then joined by Garrett Wallis from our own team here in MJ Flood Technology, who is the practice lead in terms of Teams voice within our organisation. I will then welcome John Morris. John is a client with BS&B Safety Systems, and he will talk to us. We'll have a Q&A around their experience with Teams Voice having deployed, and we would encourage people to please engage with us. It's a very sterile environment to present to, so please pop your questions in, and we'll deal with as many of those as we can within the actual time frame. So obviously, you know, Teams as a platform is multifaceted, and is probably too big a topic to cover within the 45 minutes. So what we're doing this morning is concentrating on voice capability, but not to lose sight of how the platform, you know, extends and is indeed extensible. What are the things that are top of mind in terms of CIOs, heads of IT, and in terms of the actual business itself? Well, it's security and compliance, you know, agility, and especially during COVID-19, to be agile and to be able to pivot the business to respond is a key tenet of what businesses need to be able to do. And we're happy to report that, you know, Teams Voice as an enterprise solution, and it is fully enterprise class solution, meets those demands. It's inherent within the Microsoft stack, and it extends your investment to within that. So I'd like you to take those couple of things away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Eoin Mulligan, and I will join you back later on for our Q&A session with John Morris, and I hope that you get the very best out of this morning. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eoin Mulligan. I'm the Teams technical specialist with Microsoft here in Ireland. Delighted to be able to present here at the webinar. I wanted to prepare and put together this presentation to you just to show you some of the capabilities that we have, particularly in the voice and telephony space within Microsoft Teams. So when we think about Teams, we obviously look at Teams as that hub for teamwork. We've got all of the chat, we've got all of the meetings, we've got the integration with Office 365 from a files point of view. It's all backed up with the enterprise security and compliance capabilities that we've built into it. But the really key part that I'm here to talk to about today is the calling capability. So today, you all have the calling app within Teams, which allows you to make peer-to-peer calls, audio or video, and connect with people within the organization. You can also use it then to connect to people outside the organization using the federated calling capabilities. So already we've extended and we've given you an extensible calling platform. Really, though, what we want to talk about here is how do we extend that out to be able to make and receive calls from the telephony network. So when we think about Teams calling, we look at everybody having Microsoft 365 or Office 365 with a Teams client. And then we have the phone system capabilities within M or O 365. On top of this, we've built out and we supply the phone system management capabilities and the extensibility that we've built into Teams from a programmable framework where you can deploy in bots and other applications. The challenge within Teams, or what many organizations want to know, is how do we deliver dial tone into Teams? How can my users make and receive calls? So there are two different options. Microsoft are a registered telco. We have calling plans available in a number of countries worldwide, including Ireland, where you can port your numbers to Microsoft and have a complete cloud-based solution. Although what we find, though, with many organizations and many enterprises is they already have existing agreements with telco providers. They have their mobile phones and their telephone lines all tied in a contract, and it's about how do we connect into that. And that connectivity is done via direct routing capabilities. So what does phone system allow you to do? It really is about and as simple as replacing your traditional telephone system with Office 365. It's about bringing all of those voice capabilities into Office 365, replacing all of that traditional telephony infrastructure that you have on premise today and all of the hardware that's there. It's also about consolidating all of that into Office 365. So you've got one place to manage all of this. So when you create a new user, when you onboard a new user into the organization, you can give them now not only email and Teams, but you can also give them a telephone number and the ability to make and receive calls. And then you can also scale that out globally so that as you replace telephone systems in different regions, that's all very possible. And you can just do that and connect in with using direct routing there. Or it might be that you have a region where you've got a small number of users where it actually makes more sense to use calling plans for those users and direct routing in your major offices. The interop and the migration from one to the other is what many organizations want to understand, and how can they do it. So when we look at our Teams users over here on the left-hand side, we give them Microsoft Teams and we give them the phone system capability. They obviously have connectivity to the internet to be able to use Teams, but that's obviously used as the carrier to connect them into the session border controller, the SBC, which is either in Azure, it's in your data center, it might be in your office, depending on the type of SBC that you deploy. And that SBC then is connected to the carrier and the telco, allowing those users in Teams to make and also receive external calls. So that's the simple part. So if we look at our Teams user, Teams phone system, the internet, connected to the SBC, out to the carrier or telco that you have in the office, or it could be a SIP trunk provider, and then connecting to external callers. But from a migration point of view and an integration point of view, we've got lots of customers with the existing PBX infrastructure sitting in their premises. You might have a contact center that you've invested a lot of money in and that you need to get a return on investment before doing anything with that. So we can also connect that SBC into your on-premise PBX, your existing PBX infrastructure, telephony infrastructure, and that way then those PBX users can still be able to make and receive calls. But we can also put a lot of clever things into that SBC for users on Teams to be able to call the PBX users and vice versa, so that nobody is left as an island where they can't call each other. We've lots of partners in the certified SBC space. Audio Codes, Ribbon, Oracle, and Nokia are just some of them. But we've just announced in the last month or so that we've certified Avaya SBCs and Cisco SBCs. So if you've got those existing SBCs in your environment today, it might be just something as simple as a firmware upgrade and working with a partner to manage the deployment of it into direct routing and with Teams telephony. We have a full-featured call queue and auto attendant capability built into Teams as well. So as we move the capability from the PBX on-premise to Teams, we can then stand up call queues and auto attendants. So when somebody dials into the organization, We can have the press 1 for sales, press 2 for accounts, etc. Or we can route it directly to a call queue of operators who can answer the phones, and we can distribute calls around the organization. So all very simple from that point of view. And by the way, there's no additional license required for call queues and auto attendance. It is included as part of the phone system capability. We're working on the calls app within Teams today, and we'll have a new release of this coming out in this quarter. And we really are just enhancing the capabilities of it. So from the call app today, you may not have the numbers here because you can't make external calls. But when you can, you will have all of these capabilities that are here. But we're also putting in other things like being able to control your devices and your call forwarding settings very quickly and very easily from here. You're going to be able to see all of the parked calls that are already held in the organization, and you can retrieve parked calls from there. You can access all your contacts, and this is where we'll integrate with Outlook for your contacts, and we'll do a sync with Outlook. We can have speed dials and delegations over on the right-hand side. We'll have our voicemail integrated with the ability to play it back directly from screen. And we'll also be introducing sidecar support as well, where if you've got a traditional operator type handset and you want sidecars attached to that, you'll be able to plug those in and sign speed dials or status information from them. We also have a whole range of certified devices for users. And I'm just going to concentrate on the personal devices space here. So we've got a range of headsets and devices like the Elara, where users can utilize different types of devices to interact with Teams voice. We've got speaker devices, which is where they can put those devices on their desk. And this is really about users who are on calls a lot of the day, and it gives them just a hands-free device to use. And then we have a range of traditional handset type devices, which are all running a Teams version of software. And those devices are able to obviously make and receive calls, but obviously then also able to do Teams functions like join a Teams meeting. They will also be able to have capabilities like closed captioning for those meetings, etc. So very powerful devices. One of the other areas that lots of organizations want to understand is what is the call quality like? What's the user experience like in the making and receiving calls, and also in the overall meetings capability as well. So every organization has the ability today, and you don't need phone system for this, to access what's called the call quality dashboard and see what your user's experience is like in terms of calls, the peer-to-peer audio calls, external calls, and also their meetings. And you can see what we would classify as poor quality, good quality, etc. And this gives you an overall view of how the system is performing, how your networks are performing within your building. And also it can flag up different challenges that users might be having with voice or quality across Teams. We can also, though, dig into individual users and see exactly what's happening from their point of view. So when a user reports a problem with a poor quality call, we can actually go into that user in the Teams Admin Center, go into the call quality information for that. We can see the 7-day history, and we can dig down into a call and go to the level where we can see what device they used, what system they were running, and the connectivity that they had, whether it was Wi-Fi or whether they were on 4G, for example, or internet. We can see whether the audio quality was rated as good or poor, etc. And we can see potentially here what it was that actually caused the poor quality or the poor experience. So it could have been the network, it could have been the device that they were using, or it could have been the third party externally to them as well. One of the other areas that has been a real growth area for Teams in the last while has been the embedding of other applications within Teams. So we've got a whole range of Teams applications in the App Store, 300 plus at this stage. But what we've also focused on is certifying a range of apps in the contact center and call recording compliance area to extend out the capabilities of Teams as a platform. So we can now support the migration of those completely away from those on-premise PBX with contact center solutions into Office 365 and Microsoft Teams, or for organizations who need to deploy a contact center in a more formal basis for the interaction with their customers. They're able to use that with these certified solutions from partners like Nice, Anywhere 365, Five9, or from a recording point of view, they can deploy recording where they may want to record all of the inbound calls to a particular group of people or to the organization to make sure that everything is said and dealt with in a compliant way. So that's a brief overview of what we're doing from a Teams voice point of view and a telephony point of view. Thank you very much for your time and for listening. Goodbye.
Thanks, Owen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Garrett Wallis, and I'm the Microsoft practice lead here in MJ Flood Technology. Owen has given us a great summary of the capability of Microsoft Teams Voice and its ability to deliver a high quality, high functionality telephony service within an organization. For the next few minutes, I'd like to focus on a few of the points made and to put some context around those. The points are the scale and maturity of Microsoft Teams Voice, the ability to integrate Teams Voice with existing telephony services, and the ability to extend the service to meet more sophisticated requirements. And finally, then, the importance of a strong partner to assist in the adoption of such services. So one moment while I just share some of my slides with you now to keep me on point. So we've termed today Microsoft Teams and the future of telephony is now. And so the question comes to mind, why does Microsoft Teams represent the future of telephony and why now? Microsoft Teams Voice is Microsoft's cloud-based PBX offering. Cloud-based services place additional burden on connectivity and require an organization to place trust in external services. Some organizations have historically been reluctant to accept the perceived risk of locating such a service as telephony outside of their organization and placing that trust in another organization. Well, if nothing else, recent events have shown that that cloud and networking services can be depended upon, and that the agility delivered by cloud-based services offer tangible benefits to organizations. Recently, organizations have had no choice but to depend on cloud and networking services, and it has delivered through unprecedented demand. New work practices are being forced upon organizations to assess how best to deliver services like voice and the part that cloud plays in those, in the delivery of those services. You know, a point is voice services are not new to Microsoft, who have been developing voice services for many years through Link and the evolution through Skype and Skype for Business and now into Teams Voice, and making Microsoft now one of the largest voice providers on the market. Microsoft Teams Voice is Microsoft's implementation of cloud-based PBX effectively, and it's delivered within the Microsoft Teams client interface to a user. The diagram I'm showing here now shows just illustrates the extent of the Microsoft network. And it illustrates that high-speed, low-latency access to these PBX services located within Microsoft data centers can be delivered at low latency, which is critical for voice services, and is available to the vast majority of users, regardless of location. I'm showing the global map, but you know what's more relevant to us is perhaps the local environment in Ireland. And in the context of Ireland alone, there are 3 Microsoft data centers delivering a level of resilience that would be difficult for any organization to achieve themselves. It's a mature service, and industry analysts have been assessing the voice and unified communications marketplace, and there's 2 particular measures. One is the capability of the solution that's offered, and the other is the ability of the organization as a provider of that service. And in both instances, Microsoft appear in the Magic Quadrant, in the Leaders Quadrant, both in a completeness of vision and the ability to execute, and in their capability as a service provider for an enterprise class service. What cloud telephony brings to us. So why is this the future? Well, you know, IP telephony isn't new, but nor is cloud-based IP telephony. But what Teams Voice does is it makes those services available to everyone, any user in the small organization or large organization, in any location or on any device. You know, it effectively, we call it making what was traditionally a fixed service, making that mobile. Teams delivers on those services through the Teams app, providing a seamless integration between communications and collaboration. There's new methods of collaboration between interpersonal communication and between us and our customers, and social media, etc. Our communication platform must be able to integrate with all of those. It's a cloud-based service, and a statement of fact in relation to cloud-based services that it removes the cost and complexity of significant on-premises infrastructure, the investment required for that, and the ongoing maintenance and service of that infrastructure. And rigid, fixed on-premises infrastructure is often a barrier to change and agility, which is so important in today's climate. And Microsoft can deliver a complete telephony solution. For many organizations, the native capabilities of Teams Voice will be more than sufficient. For customers for whom their requirement for external calling is met by a calling plan, they don't even need to deal with the telco, and the calling plan model can make financial sense for some organizations. For others, the telcos can offer additional benefits and integrated services and also cost savings, and in those instances, they just need to deal with Microsoft and the telco, and the lines of demarcation are very clear, and the service management and vendor management is relatively straightforward. The second point I wanted to talk to was the native capability of Teams, and then it's the ability to extend through integration. Now, let me make one point clear, though, is that when we talk about extensibility and the need for extensibility, it doesn't mean that Teams is deficient in function in any way. The native capabilities of Teams will meet most requirements. And some organizations or parts of those organizations have more sophisticated requirements over and above the native capabilities. In the same way, above the native capabilities of Teams are of any other PBXs for that matter. You know, there's now a wide ecosystem of service providers who now support Teams Voice for integration with their platforms, and they're well-known and established providers and also new and innovative providers. I will note at this point that the native capabilities of Teams that are advancing so fast that our conversations with the customers now are having to get into significant detail to confirm the need for third-party integrations. That being said, there is a need, particularly in customer service centres and in regulated industries around contact centres and call recording and call management capabilities. Key to those integrations is the session border controller, as Owen touched on earlier. The SBC is a special purpose device that routes IP communications flows between platforms. It serves, it's important in three aspects. It's the route, as Owen pointed out, for us to provide telco integration. The incoming service from the telco connects to the SBC, and Teams connects to the SBC, or the legacy PBX connects there, and the SBC routes the traffic. It's aware of where a user or a user extension is, whether it's on the Teams environment or on a legacy PBX environment, etc. That aids in transition, enabling smooth integration and transition between current PBX and Teams. It can be a long process for a large organization to transition entirely, just in terms of change management. So to be able to deliver that integration seamlessly is a key element to the process, and the SBC enables that. Then it also delivers on this third-party extensibility requirement for customers with more sophisticated requirements that aren't met natively within the phone system platform. And most commonly here, we're talking about contact center integration, where the contact center client interface is used with all of the functions and features of that, but it is still using the underlying Teams platform. are for quality management or regulatory management environments. And in effect there I'm referring to call recording and discovery and records management, etc. Again, that capability is delivered on top of Teams, but it is integrated through the SBC. My third and final point is just the importance of an informed and structured approach to delivery of a Microsoft Teams-based service within a phone service within an organization. Amjet Flood Technology are the leading Microsoft partner in Ireland for Teams Voice. We bring the right people who bridge that gap between telephony and IT, and in particular with cloud services. Having been the first partner in Ireland to establish a Microsoft Cloud Voice practice, we've gained the experience that allows us to develop processes based on successful delivery. We've learned from each customer engagement in terms of the requirements of customers and how to address the challenges of telephony within organizations through Teams and through the cloud. We bring proofs of that experience through reference architectures and customer testimonials. We've worked with a number of significant organizations over time, from large to small, delivering across the spectrum of fully native Microsoft Teams environments to very complex integrations over an extended period. There's a number that come to mind that I would just mention that illustrate that. Technical University Dublin, TU Dublin, who were formed on the amalgamation of 3 institutes of technology across Dublin with DIT, Blanchardstown IT and Tala IT. And they were faced with creating a new and integrated telephony platform for those 3 distinct organisations, which were distributed across multiple locations for over 3,200 faculty members. And not only that, but they had to contend with remote working right in the middle of deployment as when lockdown came into play. Similarly affected by that were Fingal County Council, again in the middle of a migration, around about 1,200 users. Having to stand up a dedicated call centre within a matter of hours, measured in hours, in about 48 hours they had a call centre in place. Again, just building upon the Teams platform that they had put in and the integrations that they had in place with their legacy environments, etc. Mayo County Council, who are now entirely Teams Voice across multiple locations. Some of those locations are quite rural, but they're able to deliver exactly the same feature set and functionality for all users across the organisation, whether they're in a small remote location or within head office. There's no distinction made between users or barriers like that. So that represents just a small subset of some of the customers that we've dealt with. We have a large reference base to call upon. I'm going to, at this point, hand back to James, who's going to speak with one of our customers, BS&B Global, who will describe their experience of Teams. So, James, at this point, I'll hand back over to you.
Perfect, Garrett. Thanks very much for that, and I'm glad to see that we're tracking to time. But on to, I suppose, what we would describe as the highlight. We've heard from Microsoft, we've heard from the partner as to the full range and the capabilities within Teams. But there's nothing like speaking to a customer. So on that note, I would like to welcome John Morris, and John Morris is the head of IT for BS&B globally. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a series of questions to John, which hopefully he'll give us his view of the world. So welcome, John.
Good morning, everyone.
So John, look, to position, you might just outline to us, a little bit about your organisation in terms of geographies, in terms of numbers of users, and imperatives for IT, John.
Sure. Well, BS&B is a safety equipment manufacturer with a primary focus on rupture disc technology, fire suppression systems for the oil and gas, pharmaceutical, nuclear, and aerospace industries. We currently have close to about 600 employees worldwide. They're spread throughout Europe, Asia, the Americas, and North Africa. So we've quite a geographical spread of users around the world. I suppose the main imperatives are, ensuring that, they have secure access to data at all times, to company information. They have functioning equipment, and the most important one, I suppose, is they have a good, reliable communication system.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, John. So, John, just to sort of take us through, you obviously did an evaluation. What would have led to choosing Teams as the platform of choice from a BS&B point of view?
Sure. I suppose previously we'd have been using Link and Skype for Business as our communication tools, our collaboration tools. We were also heavy users of SharePoint at the time. So when Teams came along, we looked at it, we analysed it. We were looking for a resilient communications platform, which meant that we would have some level of location independence, which meant that if something happened as a disaster recovery or business continuity perspective, if something happened in our organization, we could shift our workers or employees to a different location and to be able to continue making and receiving calls as if they were still in the primary location. That was the primary focus. When Teams then came about, we analysed it, we looked at it. It included all that functionality and more. It allowed us obviously to share documentation, to chat. I think the chat has been a fantastic tool altogether. Just the cultural shift alone in that has been phenomenal.
Brilliant. So look, John, we describe Teams, typically as a journey. So I mean, in terms of BS&B, could you kind of let the listeners know where BS&B might be as an organization on that journey?
Yeah, of course. We started off, as I said before, with Skype for Business, and we moved to a Teams only deployment this year back in April, completely. But as part of that was the Skype for Business PBX, which we started with. So we started migrating our American organization first to the Skype for Business PBX platform. That meant moving our on-premise numbering systems up to the Microsoft Cloud. We had phenomenal success with that. We started in Minneapolis. We had phenomenal success. We were able to make and receive calls through the Teams environment. We had the call plans in place so people could actually communicate. Other advantages, of course, were being able to have Teams on your mobile phone, which meant that now people could actually make and receive calls internationally while they were roaming around using Teams, which was phenomenal. We then moved on to doing our Limerick facilities with the Team PBX, and then we moved on to doing our primary locations in Tulsa and Houston. I just finished there before COVID started back in February. I was in India and we rolled out the Teams voice system there. And that was a little bit different because we were using a session border controller for the first time, because we had to split and separate the India voice traffic from the Teams traffic, but it worked seamlessly.
Brilliant. Okay, excellent. And John, and I suppose one of the questions that I had was to maybe try and get you to articulate the benefits, but I think you've probably covered quite a number of benefits there. Is there anything else that you'd like to add in terms of benefits that you've seen from the organization at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, there's been huge benefits, tangible and hidden ones that we hadn't even looked at before. I mean, I suppose, like I mentioned already, the instant messaging has been a huge cultural shift. The cut down on travel alone has been phenomenal. I mean, we were always, as a company, we'd always travel every place and meet and greet and get together, whereas Teams now has cut down on that. It means that we can now collaborate using Teams. We can get stuff done. The big one as well is just getting stuff done faster. Being able to see with point of presence if somebody's in a meeting. If they're available, we can send them. If they're in a meeting, you can send them a chat. They'll typically respond quicker rather than using the old email and hope that they'll respond at some point during the day. Other things, just like audits. We've now been able to conduct all our inspections and audits remotely using Teams. We've been able also to bring in people from the outside using Teams, even if they don't have a Microsoft account. We've tested where they can, connect via other platforms and come in and use Teams. We also use the audio conferencing, which is fantastic, which means now we have people that can join Teams calls throughout the world from outside the organization as well. The other thing which we found recently, we've been so successful in some areas of the world, particularly in Brazil and China, that we're thinking of closing some of our small sales offices there because people can now work from home perfectly, and there's no need to have all these bricks and mortar offices anymore.
Yeah, excellent, Jonathan. That brings me very nicely to my next question, which is around, is it a little bit early to predict TCO from a BS&B point of view, or do you think you could articulate, or give us some indication as to a view on that at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, total cost of ownership is difficult to predict, but I suppose ROI is a little easier. Based on what I mentioned just previously, all the benefits there, as well as where we are with COVID. I mean, we would not have been able to continue to operate as an organization without having Teams available, especially the Teams voice, where people could actually pick up their equipment, could work at home real quickly, get set up, and work away as if they're still in the office. I mean, that's been phenomenal for us. You can't really put a price in that. But if I was to look at an ROI, I mean, it's probably in the region of months or even weeks at this stage, based on the fact that we've been able to successfully continue to operate all through COVID.
Yeah. So and that of course was my next question was, has COVID adversely affected the business, generally, and obviously Teams can help in that point of view, but just to touch on maybe in half, because it's very topical. It's difficult to get away from mentioning COVID and and everybody's fatigued by it, but it's highly topical to businesses.
Yeah, I mean, COVID for us, obviously, like most companies, was just was scary. Let's say, having Teams. I mean, one of the first things we did when we switched over to the new platform was we trained everyone up. Now that training had to happen remotely, of course. So I spent some days training people in US, Canada, Mexico using Teams and recording the sessions each time. They were then able to play back these sessions to understand the training that for different features of the phone system, how to make calls, how to use voicemail and so forth, how to how to transfer calls, simple things like that. But it meant that we could get our work done. And one of the other benefits, which was fantastic, was from an IT perspective, was to be able to take control of somebody's PC if they were having a problem. Now, we couldn't go to their house or anything like that, or COVID, or if they were traveling abroad. So we're able to actually get into their computer, take control, and fix their problem there and then come back out again. I mean, that was a fantastic benefit that we didn't have before.
Yeah. Excellent, John. And John, final kind of question for you would be, for anybody sitting on this call today, considering a move to Teams, would you have any sage advice for them?
I suppose the only advice I have is just to ensure that you train your people well first, that to get the best out of Teams, they should understand all the features that it has. Because it can be different. I mean, as I mentioned already, the cultural shift. We have people now that have migrated away from using physical handsets because they find using a microphone or some other kind of device much easier to use. So training people to use it on their mobile phones and the whole collaborative side to get the best out of it. Where our journey is looking towards a single pane of glass. I mean, that's what we're looking at, where we can have everything on the one platform, where we can go in and do all our work from there. So that's our journey, that's our focus. But I can't say enough about it. It is a really fantastic platform for us. It's worked really well. It's saved our business really in a lot of ways, and it's used all the time and every day.
John, that's absolutely fantastic, and we really thank you for sharing with us today, and giving us obviously your time. And as I say, there's nothing like listening to a customer. So, but if you'd bear with us, I'm going to take a couple of the questions from the live Q&A then, and I may distribute these to different contributors. So please bear with me. My eyesight is not the best. So look, one of the questions here, and Garrett, this is probably pertinent to yourself. Can I use my existing desk phones in Teams?
Right. So the short answer is that Teams requires a Teams certified device. Existing desk phones may not be Teams certified. Now, Microsoft have acknowledged this barrier to Teams adoption and have announced at Ignite this year that they will, in the future, start supporting open SIP devices, etc., and lowering the barriers for certification. So while the answer may be no at the current point, dependent on the device, it's a moving space right now, and it's been acknowledged as a challenge for people who have existing IP telephony that they would like to reuse.
Yeah. Thanks, Gar. Thanks for that. So another question here is, as an enterprise solution for voice, and this is an important one, what is the uptime reliability of Teams voice?
It's one of the most common questions we're asked, James. It's so the straightforward answer is that the SLA for Teams calling is 99.9% availability. For organizations, though, where that's not sufficient, there is the ability to add in what's termed a survivability mode through the SBCs, which would allow a service to continue to be delivered in the event of a loss of connectivity. So it's where the SBC would route traffic where you were taking lines into the SBC and you had on-premise users, and it can provide what's called survivability services. So for the very important locations, that capability exists, where the 99.9% is insufficient.
Excellent. So what we're saying in effect there, that's catered for in design of a team solution.
Correct. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So another one here, our phone is VoIP based, hosted by an external company. Is there a possibility to move the number to Teams, so the numbers to Teams, so that customers can call and calls can be transferred to soft phones on separate desks?
So easy answer to that. Yeah, fully support number portability into Teams. Number of methods to achieve that. It is dependent on the source environment cooperating and been part of that number portability service across telcos, but there should be no issue with that.
Excellent. And I'll take a final one here, and sorry I'm picking on you all the time, Gar, but so is it possible to have a decked kind of solution for non-named users in the shop floor, maybe connect an existing decked server to the SBC? We're getting technical now. Yeah,
we probably have to get into a little bit more detail, but so decked handsets are supported on Teams. Okay, yeah. The non-named users on the shop floor, we need to get into a little more detail to understand exactly what that requirement is. But certainly there is decked support, support for decked handsets and devices within Teams. 100%.
Yeah, perfect, Gar. Look, that's excellent. Look, it brings along and I'm conscious now of the time, but it brings us, very nicely along to sort of say, look, engage with us in terms of your Teams journey if you're considering it. Engage early. We have the experience. We won the Modern Workplace Award from Microsoft this year for Teams in voice. We're just about to be to make the advanced specialization as the first company in the country. So we're steeped in this. One of the mistakes that we see made by customers is developing the thinking beyond, without engaging expertise that have lived and breathed it. And we our key call it would be to engage with us. Now, just, to talk for a second around total cost of ownership and return on investment. I will share with everybody on the call a Forrester report which talks to this, and it publishes that you've got a 261% ROI with the Teams deployment and a 3-month payback in terms of the return on investment. Now, some people might take that with skepticism, but if that were even 50% of that in terms of an Irish context, where obviously, that's a US report, so to distill it down to an Irish market, I think that anybody from a finance perspective on this call would take that as a key sort of positive. So, taking away, you've got security is inherent. All of the functionality is there, as has been demonstrated by all of our contributors this morning. I'm very excited about the opportunities that lay before us in terms of how the journey that can be taken on a Teams deployment. It's also not a bite off everything at one time. Take it in bite-sized chunks, and that's what to do. We've seen that from John Morris this morning, and it was absolutely a journey. But our key call to action is to please engage with us, talk to us. It may well be that you've got the licensing via your existing agreements that actually allow you to deploy Teams easily. But even in an upgrade situation, perhaps to even E5 licenses, you get all of the rich, deep security functionality that comes with that, as well as the full collaboration experience. So look, it remains for me, I'm now running 1 minute over what I said in 45, so my moderator Danny is going to kill me for going on. Once again, I'd like to thank all of our contributors, and especially to the people who have prospective customers and customers that have given up their time to be with us this morning. I thank you all, and reach out to us soon. Thank you very much.